You gotta give me one thing. I'm a scary judge of talent.
Adolphus Washington back-to-back plays.
The Detroit Pistons select Luke Kennard from Duke University.
Welcome, everybody. Another episode of the Triple Double Podcast. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving and hope you guys are ready for the opening weekend of high school basketball. I'm Corey Albertson. We've got 270 Hoops, Jason Morrow in the building. If you live in Columbus area and you haven't already purchased 270 Hoops as a great magazine, where can they get that?
It'll be online. We'll have it open. Our store should be open here probably the next day or so.
Okay, great.
It's not already open.
So you guys can get that online, get the full Central Ohio preview, and that should be good stuff. So today's guest, we've got Shaun O'Connell. Coach O'Connell is the head coach over at Cincinnati Withrow High School. Before that, it's his fourth year. Before that, he was at Dayton Ponus as a head coach, as well as an assistant coach at Dayton Dunbar, and has coached on the AAU circuit. So, Coach, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me, Corey.
Yeah, well, this is a couple weeks in a row now we've been able to do these in-person ones, and they go a little bit more smoothly. So, fortunately, we're right down the street from Withrow.
Yeah, absolutely. We had late practice tonight. My wife was nice enough to bring me a sandwich, and I just headed down after late practice, so it's great.
Well, there you go. Well, it's a school night. We know you guys are busy, so we'll get right into it. Wanted to talk to you really about taking over at Withrow. You know, I was doing a little research on this, and it's already your fourth year.
Yeah, it's going kind of quick. You know, we got the job. I was lucky. Ponus was a 4-year job. Now I'm planning on staying at Withrow for a long time, as long as they'll have me. But Ponus, I got married. My wife is from Cincinnati. Her family lives on the west side. Now we live on a Pleasant Ridge area. And I was driving back and forth to Dayton, where I grew up to coach. And kind of happened, I had a really good senior class my last year at Ponus. And it kind of timed out with, so there's some jobs in Cincinnati I was looking at. And it kind of noticed that Withrow is kind of having a down year. And I thought to myself, that'd be a pretty neat job, because I know not as much as you guys will, but the history of Withrow, how good of a program it is. And it kind of worked out that I got the job. And first year we went 9-15 after starting out 0-8. It wasn't pretty at the beginning. And then the past 2 years we've been 16-9 and lost both years in to Moeller in the sectional championship game. And I'm just really proud of the kids I've had the first 3 years to really get this thing turned back around. And not that we built it from the scratch, because Withrow has always been a great program, but they had a down year or two before I got here, and some really good kids have helped me turn it around. And we're looking forward here to year 4. These seniors have been there. I'm kind of the only coach they've known, so, and my staff, so that's kind of a neat thing to have year 4 with those guys.
I totally forgot the year that Moeller went undefeated to the state championship game. You guys lost. What, on a half-court buzzer beater?
Yeah.
Sorry to bring it up.
No, it's it's funny. It was obviously heartbreaking at the time, but certain games as a coach you just don't forget, and that was one of them. We they were 25-0, number 1 in the state, and we were a unique team that year. We had a bunch of guys that were just fighters that year, and we got hot late in the year. We had a really bad point in that year. In early January, we just played awful, but then we won 10 of our last 11, and we felt confident that we could play with them. That was one where I kind of actually, as good as I thought they were, we kind of chose them. Last year, we didn't have a choice, but that year we chose them, and sure enough, we played them in a great game, and Sleepy Payton hit a half-court shot with a second left to beat us, and that's a great kid, man. He's doing a good job at Indiana Wesleyan, I understand already. And, he was a heck of a high school player. He's a really good player.
Yeah, brutal way to go down to start your career at Withrow. But, taking over at Withrow, and I actually like some of the guys who had been there before you, but for whatever circumstances, and it goes beyond boys basketball program, it had been a struggling program. So, when you got there, there was maybe a sense of some guys running around without structure, and you certainly had to kind of change some things to get it to where it is today, to get guys kind of performing on and off the court the way you want them to.
Yeah, I think I know T.Y. Jabert, and he and I are friends. I think he did a good job. I wasn't around really what happened at the end, but I know, like you said, sometimes structure is all that's important. And we just had a group of guys. We had to get the right group of guys to buy it. And frankly, I got fortunate, and we had those kind of kids. And I kind of believe you win with people rather than necessarily talent. I think around this area right now, I think that Moeller and Covington Catholic have great, great talent. I think Lakota East and Princeton are talented. And I think the rest of us are all very similar. So if you can get guys to really buy it and really, really play hard and really believe in what they're doing, I think you got a chance to be competitive. I don't mean to slight anybody, but those are programs. Moeller and Cov Cath are a little bit above the rest of us from a talent perspective.
Without question.
But there are other really good programs. Hughes was extremely talented last year. Taft is Taft every year. They're D2 instead of D1. GMC is a good league, but I think this year and the past 2 years, it's not that they're in our state tournament, but Moeller and Cov Cath, and then the rest of us all think if we got in a fight, depending on what night it was, the one would win. It could be anybody.
I always say, and I agree with everything you said, I always say it's better for Cincinnati basketball when Princeton and Winton Woods and Withrow are good. And those are 3 schools, Division I in basketball, big schools. And, I think the other coaches in your league would say, those 3 jobs, you're always going to have kids in the building that can play basketball. And, maybe they also play football, or maybe they don't do anything and they need to be introduced to basketball. But, you certainly found that. And, those teams, as well as obviously your private Catholic schools, usually have the most talent. And maybe Taft is in that mix as well.
Yeah, I think it's unique right now, Corey. It's interesting we talk about this. I was actually talking to a coaching buddy of mine about this lately. I don't know if there's as many super, super talented kids as there used to be 10, 15 years ago, where I think now you got a lot of athletes, and in each program you have a certain number of talented guys. And the trick to being a good program, to me, is not necessarily how many talented guys you have. It's how many role players that you can get that are willing to be role players and really embrace that role and do a great, great job. But I look at the success we've had over the last 2 years. Not that we've been great, but we've been good. And a lot of it 2 years ago had to do with my point guard, Frank Robinson. And Frank Robinson is a kid that's 5'5" and can't shoot. He wasn't a good shooter. I'm sorry, Frank, but this kid played harder than anybody in the gym. He knew how to defend. He knew how to run our team. He's a huge part of why we were good. And then last year we had a kid, John Lawrence, played the 2 spot for me. John Lawrence we barely kept him my first year as a sophomore on the JV, played JV as a junior. Kids that know how to do the right things and embrace trying to win make you good, and it's the difference. I think teams with winners, it makes a big difference.
I was going to bring up Frank Robinson at some point. I remember I tweeted back when I was having my open gyms that he was the MVP of my open gyms from an effort standpoint. And I mean, he wasn't one of the more talented players, but he always hung around because he always could win in the open gyms because of the effort thing. And, when I saw kids like that having success at Withrow, it was a different Withrow experience from everything I've ever seen in my lifetime, which is 10 years ago, Frank Robinson, because of talent, can't play at Withrow. He's just not going to get many minutes. But, now we've seen kind of a new age thing. And because of his buy-in, his dedication, he was able to. And that's what you said is the guys with the role players win, and he was willing to buy into that. And that really goes with what you said about Moeller, what you said about Covington Catholic is they're able to get kids to buy into roles as well. The advantage is that the role player at Moeller tends to be a little more talented than the role player at XYZ school. But that's really the mark of a good coach. If you can get a kid who, if they went to another school, would be the best or second best player, but now you get them to go to your school and they're a role player, well, now you got a chance to build a really good high school team.
No, I agree with that. I think Like I said, I just think it's so important nowadays to get kids to embrace and understand their role. And then, I think we got to make sure as coaches we value roles. We talk about we got certain skill guys in our program and certain tough guys in our program. And, we talk a lot with kids about what's real toughness and what's fake toughness. And, we talk about being able to come up with a 50-50 ball and holding the ball. Today we were talking about holding box outs on the backside, defensive rebounding, and making sure you talk on a switch or helping out in the lane. Those are things those things win. I think I've been fortunate since I've been down here to be kind of buddies with a group of guys kind of led by Dan Fleming, even though he's retired, Coach Fleming and Mike Nosk out at Wilmington. You talk about guys that win over a long period of time, and you look at some of LaSalle's teams, you look at Wilmington, even though they had Cumberland, who was absolutely fantastic, he had some other guys that were just guys.
He had role guys.
Yep.
And we told the story in the podcast before. There was a kid at Wilmington when they went to the state Final Four that I watched him get 2 offensive rebounds 2 feet away from the rim, didn't score, passed it back out to Jaron. He had kids and said those kids weren't very good. They're big and strong, tough kids because that's what Wilmington has. But he had kids who would do whatever they said, and they knew if we're going to win, that means Jaron shoots the ball 30 times, and they did it.
Right. No, that's – so I said, you get guys to buy it. You get a group of guys to believe in each other. You got a chance. I mean, you can be dangerous in that regard.
But when you took over Withrow, it was just at a unique time. And, again, I like T.Y. I think you did a good job. There's other factors at play, and we don't even need to get into that. But they changed conferences, and you've got Withrow, all anybody ever knew was them as a city league team. So now you're playing teams. There's probably a little less excitement in the air around the school because I'm sure if you went to school in 2010 at Withrow, you were excited on Friday night when they played Hughes, when they played Taft. Well, now they're playing Loveland, Milford. A lot of those kids have never been to those schools. And, there's so many other things going on. And then what they need, the program probably needed was just some fresh faces. You guys brought that. But at the same time, when you took over at Withrow, I think, guys like me who've seen you on the AU circuit, I know about what you guys did at Ponitz. I knew what you guys are capable of, but despite it only being 50 miles away, your kids, they don't know what Ponitz High School is. So you had to take a Cincinnati City League school of all City League kids, even though they're not in the City League anymore, and as a quote-unquote non-Cincinnati guy, lead a Cincinnati team. That's definitely a very different dynamic than what we see at every other Cincinnati City League school, pretty much anywhere in the state, where the coaches at those schools are usually came up in that league.
Yeah, no, it is a little unique. We can just say I'm a white guy from a suburban area. I grew up, went to Dayton Carroll Catholic School, and I've coached
Patriots.
That's right. I've coached at 3 inner city schools now. Dayton Dunbar as an assistant. I got to be friends with them when I was a young guy as an assistant at Carroll. And then when Carroll had coaching change, they welcomed me to come over to Dunbar. Then Ponitz was a new school when I got there. So that's kind of how I got the opportunity. And then here at Withrow, I tell you the constant. I got a great wife who's very supportive in what we do. It's pretty simple. We treat it like a family. Now, doesn't mean we don't yell and scream, because if you see me coach, I'm loud, I yell and scream. It's kind of what it is. But we also hug our guys and we treat them like family. My wife's great. She feeds them. They like her better than they like me, which that's when I know we're going to have a good team. When they're starting to buddy up with her more than me, that's when I know we're in good shape. And I've just seen that kids can sense real, whether it's right, wrong, or indifference. Kids know where you care about them. And if guys know that you care about them, they're going to play pretty darn hard for you. And I've just been fortunate to have guys play. That's really it. I mean, I make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of coaches a lot better than me, X's and O's wise. But I've been fortunate enough to get some guys that'll play really, really hard for me. And that's why we've been successful. And I want to make sure I say this. I'd be terrible if I don't forget. I have a good staff at Withrow right now, and I was very blessed to have a good staff at Ponitz too, both places.
Well, when you look at the city school dynamic, it's different than some of the other dynamics. For example, at Carroll, you were in GCL, or in Cincinnati, people talk about Moeller, Cuff, Cath, private school, Catholic school. Obviously the City League's a different dynamic. What you dealt with at Dunbar, what you dealt with opponents, what you're dealing with at Withrow, similar kids, just, 50 miles south now. But you have to have that mindset. And, before the podcast, we were talking about how you guys are going to play West High on Friday, and their coach is Mark Mitchell. He's been on the podcast. He echoed those things. He's quite the storyteller and everything, but that's been his approach. When you look at Brian Wyatt, what he's built at Hughes, different approach in terms of he's probably not as boisterous as Mitch, but same thing with the family approach. Guys like Jarrell Redden at Woodward, Ty Cass at Aiken, DeMarco Bradley at Taft, those guys, all have different styles, but it's the same type of thing. And to win with those type of kids, you have to show them that you care off the court, and then it's about. Also, you have to monitor things like the academics. You have to monitor the other things, and that's all part of what you guys are doing at Withrow.
No, absolutely. We've really worked hard to make sure, try and get good student, get the kids to be good students. And the thing is, that's a thing where you talk about. That's a struggle, I think, for anybody to really realize. We talk a lot about. I know it's part of your guys' job to talk about recruiting. What people don't understand is that if you're not really, really good and a super high-level player, the better the grades are, the more recruitable you are. We got kid Mike Hill Jr. on our team this year. Mike's a 4.0 kid. Now, by being a 4.0 kid, he's far more recruitable to Division II schools, NAIA schools. Some of these schools that have to combine they get maybe 8 basketball scholarships for a team of 12 guys. So now Mike might get a 60% potential basketball scholarship, 40% academic money. That GPA is of the utmost importance. And, I always say to our kids, if you can be low profile from 8 to 2:30, then you deserve some attention at night. You'll earn that attention at night. And I think if guys act right, most guys, can handle the school part. They just got to, know how to act right and behave. And we've been lucky. Our kids have been pretty good over at Withrow. And I was really blessed. I had that special group of opponents, and those kids were extremely well behaved, and it helped us out.
The thing about Withrow that maybe people outside of Cincinnati don't know is, and this isn't a knock on the other city schools, but comparatively, the Alumni Association and some of the resources at Withrow are really, really good. Unfortunately, a school that's so much smaller, like let's just say Schroeder, by population, by history, doesn't have that. So my thought process would be, if you're at Withrow and you're doing the right things, like you said, from 8 to 2:30, and you want to do well, you guys have the resources. There's the adults, the mentors who will help the kids get through it if they're willing to put the time in.
Absolutely. I think we've been pretty fortunate with that. We've had a few changes administratively since I've been there, but now, and I've liked most people. They've let me coach and been very supportive of me. Now we have my old athletic director from the Dayton area, Jonas Smith, is our athletic director, and we have a good principal, Mr. Jaron Gray. He's from Walnut Hills, was where he's an assistant principal. He's even more strict academically, and it's really, he just talked to our kids a few weeks ago about raising the bar academically and how it'll translate. And I think that kind of support, I tell you what, I say we got it, but I know, DeMarco Bradley and I are great friends, and they do extra things to get that in place for the kids at Taft too. I know they do. I know they're doing it over sometimes at Hughes. I know they're doing it. I know Mitch. I know Mitch has been doing it more than any of us have, for longer than any of us. So I think in the Cincinnati public area, we actually may have better resources than I experienced in the Dayton public area.
Dayton public significantly less. And, I would say, and I'm maybe not the most educated to speak on this, I would say that there's a somewhat of a fall off from Dunbar versus the rest in terms of resources too. Dunbar being the bigger school has more resources. But, I think it has gotten better, and I think there's more adults who have that vision. And I had a major gripe with a lot of Division I college coaches, and I wasn't shy about telling them this. And I found it borderline offensive that a lot of guys a couple of years ago, he was class of 2017, wouldn't recruit Malik Green from Taft. And what they told me was, well, the kid goes to Taft, he'll never qualify. And I said, well, Malik Green's got like a 3.5 GPA. And there are some kids at Taft who haven't qualified. There's no question. But, people assume things, but they don't really see the progress that's being made and that there are kids who are trying to make it out of those environments. And now, as a sophomore, Malik's playing 32 minutes a game for Morehead State Division I basketball. He was on ESPN when he played against UConn, and hopefully other schools, whether it's Division I or Division II, for kids like Mike Hill, kids that you have at Withrow, schools start to realize that kids can qualify out of the Cincinnati City League or the Dayton City League. It's not even about the coach; it's about the smaller family within the school that helps those kids.
No, that's true. Only the best example I have is it's my alma mater where I went to college, but Wright State wouldn't recruit Norris Cole from Dayton Dunbar, and
bad move.
It came to bite him as big as it could have bit anybody. And Norris was all-league player at Cleveland State, played in the NBA. Now he's over in China making a couple million a year, and he was, it just kind of can't judge the book by the cover, and I think like you talk about high character kids, DeMarco Bradley's a high character kid, DeMarco's son. Grown man is a good character kid, Kershawn Stringer. Walnut Hills last year had Cameron Gibson, who was as good of a kid as I think you're going to find. And I knew I was in Dayton still, but a few years ago, Walnut had Maceo Teague, and I knew Maceo from AAU. I know Maceo was as nice of a kid and got great grades. I know Walnut's seen in a little different light, but it is still Cincinnati Public and City. And I mentioned Gibson because maybe it was a talent perspective, but he was lightly recruited. And I talked to some people at the end, like, I don't really know what they're waiting on. I thought Cameron was excellent. And it sounds like, I think Ricardo told me he had at least one great game so far.
He had one game of around 30. And I bet you'll have another one before the year's over. I mean, he's gonna do really well here. And to be honest with him, I was around that recruitment a lot. It worked out perfect, being that his college coach is Skip Prosser's son. So there's a Cincinnati connection there, and Mark's taken over at Western Carolina for first year, and he has Tony Rack on staff, who's a Moeller guy, and been around at NKU. So really good fit for Cameron, and I'm glad that's going down. But let's talk about one more thing with Withrow here. We talked about all the great things. You guys are improving things academically, but I'll tell you what, I know people in Cincinnati basketball, I know the Withrow fan base, they want to win basketball games too. It's a very, very big source of pride at Withrow is the boys basketball program. If I talk to a college coach in a few hundred miles away from Cincinnati, the two schools they're going to tell me that they know are Moeller and Withrow 100% of the time. They know who Moeller is, they know who Withrow is, just because of how many kids have gone on from there over the last 30, probably more than that years. So the reason I bring that up is this. When you were at Ponitz, you guys had a really, really good team, but you still had to battle day in and day out Division II with Dunbar, with Thurgood Marshall out of Dayton, with Taft and Hughes out of Cincinnati, with Franklin, with Luke Kennard who's in the NBA. And you got to kind of play that underdog role even as you were building that Ponitz thing into being one of the best Division II teams in the state of Ohio. Now you're at Withrow, and even though it's a new league, you guys are still kind of top dogs in that league, along with Walnut Hills, of course. But you don't get to play that underdog role. I mean, how has that been different for you as a coach?
That's funny you say that. Somebody's talked about our preseason this year, and as coach, you use different things mentally, and I liked it better last year when nobody thought we were any good and everybody left me alone. I can tell you that. It's a different thing. As coaches, we look at different things to talk about. The way we see it at Withrow right now, we don't shy from this. Moeller is the best program in the state of Ohio. I mean, no knock on whether it's Garfield Heights, Lakewood St. Edward, Wayne, there's some of the Centerville, some of the other great programs. But Moeller's the top program in Pickerington Central. Moeller's the top program in the state. They've been a state championship 2 years in a row. The way we look at it is we've been second in our league the past 2 years in Walnut Hills. So Moeller's the top program in the state. Walnut's the top program in our league. It's up to us to prove otherwise and have to work every day to do just that. So, some people get into this public Catholic debate. I don't really get into it. Moeller is Moeller. We're going to try, our freshmen in JV are playing them. We're not playing them in the regular season, but, you never know when we'll see them. We play them in the summer.
If you go far enough, you're going to see them.
Right. We don't shy from it. We know how good they are, and we respect the heck out of them. And we're trying to get to the point where we continue to play them, continue to see them. And I believe if you see them enough, the years that you are good enough to beat them, you can actually do it. Whereas if you never play teams like that, then even if you have a team that might be able to beat them, they're not going to, because they're kind of shell-shocked the time they play them, So we aren't an underdog historically, but we think, that Walnuts won the league past 2 years, so it's theirs until somebody does something about it, and we think the same way with Southwest Ohio.
But from a league perspective, and I'm just guessing, I don't have any knowledge on this, I would think that when you go on the road to some of these games in your league, and there's some good teams, but there's definitely adults are going to say, well, Big Bad Withrow's walking in, they're probably going to have all this talent. I got to think that's the mindset of teams. I mean, it's just the Withrow's history. It's got to be like that.
It's interesting. It's interesting that I think that's true to an extent. I think it kind of changed, when I first got here, just in the past 3 years. When I first got there, they didn't think that because our first year in the league was really, really bad.
Sure.
And so then it took us a minute to earn some respect. And then last year, frankly, when Abba came, we have Abba Lawal, our 6'11" post player. It kind of changed back a little bit to your mindset, because sometimes people think just because you're bigger, you're definitely going to be better. So I do think there's some expectation that we're good in the league this year. I think we know that. It's up to us to do our job. And, we expect us and Walnut. And frankly, I tell you, Corey, I know you see good players a lot. There's a kid that you might not know about that's in our league. He's getting ready to be he's a sophomore now at Turpin, Jackson Holt. He's about a 6'3", 6'4" guard. He can play. He hurt us like crazy last year as a freshman. I think Turpin's a team that'll kind of fly in under the radar and be pretty good this year with him. And they got this senior guard named Nick Haddad. Those kids are pretty good players. I know Nick Haddad.
He's a Frank Robinson, where he's small, but he's gonna work at. I did not know the young kid, so I'll definitely have to get out there and see him. Well, what we like to do with these conversations here on the podcast is try and make it somewhat educational on some aspect of basketball. And what I wanted to get into here in the second part of our conversation is really preparation. And obviously that's a big theme here in the high school basketball level. So heading into kind of the opening night of the season here on Friday, especially with you guys, there's huge expectation. There's got to be a lot of excitement because you guys are hosting a doubleheader on Friday and Saturday, which I love you would talk about. Hopefully get a little more pub for that out there. But there's so many distractions for kids in 2018, wherever you go to school. And, again, Withrow, there is high basketball expectations. They want to win. So, I mean, how do you really get your team focused in, and how do you guys kind of prepare throughout this week with all the excitement and energy?
It's funny you talked about that. That was our theme of today, was to just focus on the task at hand.
It's hard when you're a teenager.
Absolutely. And we went through today with some of our freshmen and our younger guys, and I reiterated it to the older guys. What's expected of you on a game day? Little things like, if you got a family member there, it's fine to smile and wave for 1 second, but then you focus in. You don't worry about what goes on in the crowd. Kids are kids. You try not to celebrate one individual play. You try and do your work throughout the game. We always joked that if you do the right things, the big party is after the game in the locker room.
Oh, of course.
Preparation-wise, I tell you, it's a little different for the first weekend of the season as opposed to once you're into the regular season. Now, we have some information on West High. I know Mitch and we play the South Saturday night, so we have a little information. We know a little bit what to expect, but there's always some unknowns. So
LaSalle, what style of play they're going to play.
And I know, and you're fairly certain. You never know. Coaches can throw in wrinkles, but you kind of know what style Mitch is going to play. So
same thing, right?
But a lot of times, this first weekend in particular, you're really, really worried about yourself. The preparations are making sure, guys know some of your sets and your quick hitters, making sure all that stuff is finely tuned, and things that you're really, really defensive concepts. My experience is that in December, defense is ahead of offense. So we're really working on making sure our guys have the exact idea that we need to have defensively for the weekend, and just making sure they understand the concepts of our offense and what we want done, and kind of our identity. We're trying to establish our identity these first few weeks, and we hope it's a little bit of toughness. And we classify toughness because I think kids need it defined sometimes, and we classify it by little basketball things you have to do. We say defend as a team, which means talking on defense. You got to win the 50-50 balls. You have to win the battle on the glass. We think that's critical. And then you have to be willing to make what we call the extra pass. I think if we can define those 4 things, we a lot of times say if we can do 3 of those 4 well on a given night, we're probably in good shape.
I think the tough thing for you as a high school coach, and it's easier obviously if you have a more experienced team, but the thing I see early in every season, it's not a bad thing because it's, kids are supposed to be excited, it's supposed to be fun, but the teams that struggle early in the season are teams that are so hyped up before the game that they can't even control that emotion. You see it with a big kid where he's so ready to play, but he gets 2 fouls in the first 30 seconds, and that's got to be the toughest thing. And as a coach, I don't know what the answer is to that because
it's impossible.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then sometimes if you play a rivalry game, an early game, it is crazy. There's this little period when I was an assistant at Dunbar and Thurgood Marshall, when Darnell Hoskins was coaching Thurgood, and they had these great teams. We'd play the first game of the year. The first 5 minutes of that game, every year, frankly, was trash. Guys were throwing the ball out of bounds. Guys were so jacked up. Things were just happening. I think a big key to this weekend for some of these games is who can settle in and play. And weather the early storm. I think that's a huge part of these early season games.
Well, I was there. It's kind of folklore in Southwest Ohio. In the high school tournament, Division II, they moved the games to University of Dayton because of Luke Kennard and the opportunity to sell tickets to all the people that wanted to see the game. So I can't even imagine taking kids from Ponitz who are used to playing in front of couple hundred people to selling out UD Arena. I mean, how you get your kids to calm down in that atmosphere, impossible.
We didn't do a very good job.
Well, you've had to play against an NBA player.
We did not play very well that night. And you know what, though?
I'm bringing up all your losses.
It's all right. It's all right. It happens. It happens. Because sometimes you got to learn from those things. I tell you what, it taught me a lot. It taught me.
It's a great experience for your kids, regardless. I mean, they got to play at UD Arena.
Taught me some different things, how to handle that if we get in that situation again. And I frankly made a wrong decision in the tournament draw that year. I kind of went against my gut and went with the group. I've changed because of that. So you're going to get beat in this game, and you're going to get beat in sports. If you learn from it, it's fine. If you don't learn from it, kind of continues to happen. So it was a great experience for us. So, we've learned some different things from that.
Well, talking about learning, what are some of the things you took from, your time at Dunbar, getting to be around one of the real legends of high school basketball in Ohio, maybe the biggest high school coaching legend in Dayton, off the top of my head. Joe Petroselli would be up there too.
Yeah.
Would be Pete Pullen at Dunbar.
You learn a lot. And frankly, that's why the Dayton City League is not what it is. They had some kind of agenda to change Dunbar, and now that Pullen's out, it's not going to be the same for a long time. And that was a big mistake. What I learned is that you have to really be able to weather storms to be a great team. You cannot just win because you're really talented, even though sometimes Dunbar overwhelmed people with talent. I was assistant at Carroll during the great Dunbar teams with DeQuan Cook and Aaron Pogue and Norris Cole. Then I was an assistant for Dunbar when we had Deontay Hawkins and Gary Akbar. And the best kid that we had while I was there was Jaron Johnson that played at Memphis.
Andre Yates.
I was my first year opponents was with Andre. Andre is excellent though. And then Amos, of course, AJ Harris. You learn you got to wear a storm. Stuff is going to happen. No matter how good you are, You're going to have some stuff during the week maybe that happens. Or you're just going to have some stuff. The year I was with Dunbar that we won state, we played awful in the sectional final against Alter and Petrocelli. We had to find a way to get out of that game. You had to make some adjustments. And just weathering the storm and knowing how to be willing to do different things too. Dunbar would be known for their pressure, but Coach Poland would play zone in big games at times. Be willing to make adjustments and things, I think, was the biggest thing I took from that.
What I always admired about Coach Poland was I saw them play so many times where, people don't know in Dayton City League, sometimes they'll do a triple header where all 6 teams get to play in the same venue on the same night. And no matter what happens, let's just be honest, the event's about Dunbar. Dunbar's got the most loyal fan base. They usually have the most talent. And I would always go to those games, and the other team, like we talked about earlier, would be so hyped up to play Dunbar that oftentimes that team would maybe jump out to a lead. And Poland had this ability to motivate his kids, but at the same time, he could be so calm. No matter what happens, like, let's just keep playing. In the long run, they can't beat us if we play our best basketball, which is true. And if they play 32 minutes well, it takes a hell of a team to beat them at that level. And he just had that calming effect while still getting the most out of his guys.
That's another thing you learn as a coach. When everything's going crazy, you don't want to go crazy. You want to stay calm. Now, maybe when it's a little too calm, that's the time to kick in and go crazy. I tell you, great example of that when I was there. The year I was fortunate to be on staff when we won the state, we played Cleveland Benedictine in the state semifinal game. I had a kid named Cameron Wright that played for Pittsburgh. He didn't have a great college career, but I think he was first team All-Ohio. We were down 17 points at halftime. We were getting hammered. It was almost like we had no chance. That's what I'm assuming a lot of people would have thought. We didn't raise our voice. We didn't do anything in the locker room. We made some adjustments. Some things were changed because Coach Poland changed things. We came out and we were tied 5 minutes into the second half and ended up winning the game, going on to win the state. And everybody, you must have gone crazy at halftime. And everybody on our staff just smiled and laughed at each other like, no, it was about the exact opposite. And Dunbar just never got rattled. We thought it's funny. The one time don't act like I did a lot, but my last year opponents, we beat Dunbar at Dunbar. I was 1-9 or 10. We ended up winning the game by 19. We won 75-56. And I never forget, people were kind of on me to, hey, take out the guys. I didn't celebrate. I didn't think the game was won at all until they were trapping and we got a breakaway dunk to go up 22 with like 50 seconds. And then finally, there was like a dead ball after that. And I finally, my last 5 guys got to play like the last 30 seconds. But it was because of that exact thought, like Dunbar's never dead.
He knows how to relate to top talent. And when you have the best players, but you can also get those players to perform well, that's when you get that type of result. And, that's what he did without getting upset. He did have the best players. I don't think anyone would argue that. But, those kids also, he got them to play well together.
Absolutely.
And, if you look at the team, the last team that they won, they had Teddy Hawkins, they had Gary Akbar, they had Dre Yates. AJ Harris was a freshman. But, do any of those kids individually win the state? No. But if you put those four playing together and, you get a leader like an Akbar, which is all of what Poland instilled in them in 4 years, you're going to have a chance to have a great team.
No, I think, and I think you look at some of the great teams that have been around here recently in this area, it's the same thing. That different kid, you got multiple players that are good and a different kid takes the lead. Deer Park had multiple good players last year. From what I understand, even though he wasn't the best player, the Hocker kid took a lot of leadership role with that team. I thought last year, Davenport for Moeller. Peyton is a leader. Sleepy Peyton was a great leader. And I thought last year Hughes had a bunch of guys kind of come together. And Giovanni Santiago kid really stepped up and did some leadership things. I actually thought Hughes benefited and they had technically a better year last year, but I thought some of it had to do with the leadership that they actually got the year before from the Corey Long kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have guys now, like Taft, I think has a chance to be absolutely fantastically special this year, because I think Stringer might be one of the best Division II players in Southwest Ohio. And then I think DeMarco Bradley Jr. could be the best leader. We're hoping that Abo Lawal is a unique player at 6'11", and Mike Hill develops into a great, great leader, and that can help us propel us to a special season.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, the last thing I want to talk to you about is just this, which is you've coached. We talked high school basketball today, but you also talked about coaching on the AAU circuit. So, just talk to everybody about that last group you had. And then I want you to really touch on what are some of the differences between coaching at a high level in high school and then AAU as well.
I think it's changing. I think AAU is changing in the fact that, I was just the EYBL was really just getting going when I was really involved, and there might have been an Adidas thing. There was not an Under Armour thing yet. And I think that AAU is different because you got so many guys with different types of agendas. I thought AAU had some unique challenges because guys had a really different – a lot of people played AAU with the thought process of getting recruited. Frankly, we figured out. I was lucky to be around some people that have, taught me some things about you. Coach with Ray Zawodzki, who he coaches Troy Christian up in Dayton area, and Travis Trice Sr. He's at Huber Heights Wayne, and then we got involved with All Ohio with Jerry Watson. And what we found is the key to this game, even in the high school level, you get noticed by winning. Stats matter, sure, but you got to be on winners. And we were able to get some guys to believe in winning, and through that, kids were able to get recruited a lot more when you win. It's a unique thing. You can, we had a kid, Ryan Mikes, he plays for the University of Dayton right now. And Ryan, I coached the second Ohio team. I didn't coach the red. We were kind of the B team at the time, but we had some Division I players and some Division II players. So a story that we won the LeBron tournament up in Akron. That kind of the last year it was really big before it kind of got changed the way it is now. And we won that tournament, and the last day and a half, Ryan Mike, so we laugh, had a total of like 11 or 12 points and had 5 Division I scholarship offers from the time we left St. Vincent St. Mary's gym to getting on the highway up in Akron. And college coaches, I think, are looking for how you play. Kids are so worried about stats. There's certain intangible things that they're looking for, your understanding of the game, your length, your size. You can be a great shooter, but if your form's wrong or it takes you too long to get your shot off, some of these guys, hey, we can't use him. And I respect that. That AAU, you had to show kids what it was that colleges were looking for, I thought. And, the other thing we always thought about in AAU was we're trying to help you maybe find a college, and we're also trying to help you so you can come back and be the leader of a great high school team your junior
and that never
senior
gets
year.
talked about.
And, that's a big thing. And so
to interrupt you real quick, you had kids like Grant Zawodzki, who has to be the best player on his high school team.
Absolutely.
Ryan Mikesel comes from a town of like 25 people. I mean, he's got to be the leader of his high school team. So you have kids that they have to do that.
Yeah, no, and what we always loved about our AAU team, looking back, is they're like junior and senior year. You had Zawodzki, and then one year Troy Christian went to state. St. Henry lost in the regional. We had 2 kids, Omer Manzi and Jaquan Harrison, out of Columbus Afrocentric. They didn't quite make the state. They lost in the regional final, I think, to Harvest Prep like 2 years in a row.
Won a lot of games.
Yep. And we had a kid, Dorian Dawson from Dunbar, was a state champion and a state runner-up. Deshaun Jackson from Springfield played with me the last year, and Springfield went to the regional Deshaun's year. I took a lot of
Zarius Williams.
How could I forget about
Zarius
Zarius Williams won the Division I state championship. And Zarius Williams is a unique story. These kids that get hung up on how great you are in junior high. Frankly, Zarius was he'd kill me for saying this. He's probably our worst player in junior high. He was 6'2" or 3", long arms and legs, and he was still growing. And it took him forever to grow into his body, but he just kept with it. Then his senior year, Division I state champion, went to UDs, now at Akron. Just trying to find winners. And actually, we do high school's different because you're with them every single day, and you get a chance. It's funny. Carl Kramer and I talk a decent amount since I've got this job, and Carl admits that you're lucky to get to coach Moeller. There's some advantages to it. And I told him one time, it took him back, and then he kind of laughed at me and sort of agreed. I said, there's advantages to coaching maybe Moeller or, even St. Xavier and Elder and LaSalle when they have it going. But I told him, I said, we got a unique thing. I have a unique advantage that you don't have, coach. And he said, what do you mean? So, well, for the most part, you're those guys' basketball coach, because those guys, a lot of them are fortunate enough to come from homes with multiple parents, and they have, maybe upper middle class or whatever.
At least some financial stability for the most part.
And I have kids like that too, but I also have kids where I get a relationship where I'm a adult male figure that we take very seriously. And if you can get a kid to see you as family, it is a unique advantage, and it's a unique closeness that certain other people may not get to have. So I look at it as an advantage more than anything, to be honest.
I don't know if Carl would want me to say this, but I'm going to say it. He told me when the Withrow job was open that Withrow was the best job in Southwest Ohio and maybe the best job in Ohio. He told me that. Now, if he really believes that it's heart of hearts, I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
You remember earlier how you were talking about people trying to make themselves the underdog. That's what he told me. We might be the best in the area this year. And
he's big on that.
I've seen Deuce McBride, and I've seen this sophomore big. What is his last name? The very good sophomore.
Every year when I just not so much this year because I think it's kind of clear to number one. But when Flem was at LaSalle, every year, when I would put up my little thing online of who I thought the best team of Cincinnati were, somebody from Moore would call me and go, "No, LaSalle's way better than us."
Yeah, they
are they really though? It's not even close.
I thought it was.
We should be fourth.
Last year he was worried about something at one point.
Princeton was really, really good,
and they were, but you have they got a lot of great players, but they earn it. They 100% earn it.
But the last thing about the AAU thing, I think if you were talking to somebody who wants to be serious about coaching, and there's different agendas in AAU that are fine. And if your agenda is just to take kids and help them find a college, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what a lot of guys do on, maybe the 17 and under level. But I think if somebody's serious about coaching and wants to do coaching year round, who also does high school, one of the things you chose to do, and maybe this was conscious and maybe just worked out that way, in AAU was you started with them however young they were, and you stuck with one group for years. So that helps you be able to. You can only do so much in 3-4 months with culture.
We had Zawadzki from the time he was in the 4th grade, and the Kyle Arns kid that's playing here on TV. Now Kyle switched in high school, but we had him from 4th to 8th. We had Zawadzki from the 4th grade on, and then I picked up Zarius Williams and those guys in like the 7th grade. So we had those kids, and it was conscious. I tell you what happened when I became a head coach. I told my wife when I became a high school head coach. I was a high school assistant when I started AAU. When I became a high school head coach, I made the decision that I was going to finish this group and then just coach high school, and then during the AAU season, try my best to help my guys and watch my high school players play AAU and things like that.
No, you certainly have done that. I mean, that's a lot of work in itself, is just, monitoring, making sure all your guys are in position to get better. And if they are of a recruitable level, in position to get the most exposure.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, all right, cool. Let's wrap it up here. Before I wrap it up, I don't know if we went over it or not. What are you guys doing at Withrow this weekend?
This weekend we have a little like a classic. I think I briefly mentioned it. Our athletic director this year is second year, Mr. Jonas Smith. Mr. Smith, he's from the Dayton area. That's how I've known him forever. And his son actually is the point guard at my old school, Dayton Ponents. So we kind of got a neat thing to get a lot of people 2 games. On Friday night at 6:15, Ponents is going to play LaSalle. And at 8 o'clock, us and Western Hills, West High, and Coach Mitch are going to play. And then on Saturday night, we're just going to flip. Ponents is going to play West High at 6:15. And at 8 o'clock, us and LaSalle are going to play. So, it should be a neat thing. I know there's a lot of good games. There's an event at Mason. I know there's a thing in Hillsboro. But, we think it's a neat way to start our season. We're really excited about it. Frank, it's going to be a big challenge. Mitch going to try and –
you're going to play against 2 teams that are going to bring the effort. So your kids have got to be ready.
Absolutely. No, we talked about that this week, and we hope to be able to match them effort wise. I do want to we got one second. Want to talk about really proud of our kids. We have 5 seniors. Abba Lawal is a Division I player. It's funny we talk about Western Carolina. They've been in to recruit Abba recently. Mike Hill Jr., my 3 other seniors, Niles a junior, Emery Wells, Dare Moffitt, and Jamari Wise. Those kids have been with me, and I'm very excited for their senior year, and our juniors, they're going to help out. And we do have a sophomore too that'll dress, but we're really excited. And, I just appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and I'm looking forward to this season getting going.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks again for coming on. Guys, that was Shaun O'Connell, head coach at Cincinnati Withrow. If you're available this weekend, try and check out his event over at Withrow High School in Cincinnati. And for Jason Morrow, I'm Corey Albertson. Now is the Triple Double Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by PlayEasy.com. For players, coaches, or casual athletes looking to book a sports facility, as well as owners and managers of sports facilities, PlayEasy.com is the new one-stop site for streamlined services. If you're looking for a place to practice, play, host your tournament, camp, or other, simply go to PlayEasy.com and create a booking request for your area. Your request will go out to surrounding facilities who will respond with their best offer. Once you receive the offer that best fits your needs, book the facility and you're ready to play. For facility owners and managers, PlayEasy puts the power in your hands to maximize the usage and visibility of your facility. Register your facility for free today at PlayEasy.com. PlayEasy.com is the booking site built by athletes, coaches, and facility managers, and is proud to help bring you the Triple Double Podcast. This podcast is also brought to you by Anago Cleaning Systems. Are you tired of struggling in a dead-end job? If so, Anago Cleaning Systems has what you're looking for, an opportunity to go into business for yourself, but not by yourself. With franchising opportunities available for as little as a $2,500 down payment, purchasing an Anago franchise has never been easier. Once you own your Anago franchise, you're licensed to clean commercial facilities all around the greater Cincinnati, Dayton, or Columbus areas with the support of Anago's sales, quality control, operational, and accounting staff. Call 513-332-0033 today for your opportunity to be your own boss and grow your own commercial cleaning company under the guidance of Anago's proven and successful system. Again, call 513-332-0033 to learn more. With Anago, your future starts today.